Hello, I'm Jill at engVid, and today we have a lesson on expanding your vocabulary by adding a suffix. A suffix means a word that goes at the end, or some letters that go at the end of an existing word. So the word here, or the letters, are NESS. And what it does, it means any adjective or some adjectives that you already know, like good. If you just add ness to it, that adjective becomes a noun, an abstract noun. Okay, so good becomes goodness. So maybe some of these words you will already know anyway, but it's always worth thinking of extra ones to expand your vocabulary and to give you more flexibility when you're speaking or writing. Okay, so from the adjective on the in the left-hand column, you add ness, and you get an abstract noun. It doesn't work for every adjective. You have to know which one works and which one doesn't, but you can always look it up to see it if that word exists. Okay. So, for example, with colours, you know, you can have blue, blueness, red, redness, black, blackness, white, whiteness, a lot of colours it will work with. So you just have to test them out to see if they work with the suffix ness. Okay, so let's just go through the list and I'll give you some examples of how each word might be used in a sentence. So we've got good and then goodness. So good is the adjective, and goodness is the abstract noun. Okay, goodness is a good thing, you could say, or something like people say, oh, goodness me, as an expression, an exclamation. If they're surprised about something, they say, oh, goodness me. Goodness me, it's been raining a lot today, anything like that. Okay. It's a strange expression, really. Why add me to goodness? Goodness, me? It doesn't really make sense logically, but it's just an expression. Okay. And then we have rich and richness. So you could talk about the richness of nature with all the trees and flowers and animals and the weather, different weather. Mountains and fields, so the richness, the variety of nature. Okay, sick. If you're sick, you're ill, so sick and sickness. There has been a lot of sickness around recently. Oh, there is more sickness in the winter, that kind of thing. Okay. Heavy. So heavy, when something weighs a lot. This time you have to be careful if the word ends with a letter Y. Often you have to change it to an I when you add ness. So heavy and heaviness. So you can have a feeling of heaviness. Okay, you could use it that way. And then the opposite, light and lightness. You can have a feeling of lightness when you feel as if you're about to float off into the air. Okay. And dizzy, if you're dizzy, your head is, or you feel you might fall over. Your head is sort of going round like this, dizzy. You don't feel stable. So dizzy, again, the Y is replaced with an I, and it's dizziness. So you could say, I have been suffering from dizziness today. Okay, I think there's something wrong, dizziness. Okay, and then like, this is an interesting one, because this isn't really an adjective itself, but when you put it with NESS, it becomes a noun. So it's an exception, really. But this is a useful word here, lightness. It's to do with if somebody paints a portrait or draws a portrait of a person who you know personally, and you can recognize the person in the picture, and then you say, oh, that's a very good likeness of my friend. I recognize who it is. You know, that's a very clever drawing or painting. The artist, whoever it was, has captured the way the person really looks, so that you do recognize them. So it's a very good likeness. Or maybe they haven't done very well, so it's not a very good likeness. It doesn't really look like that person. Okay, so that's a useful word there. And then back to adjectives again. Lazy, and then the Y changes to an I. Laziness. So you might say, I don't approve of all this laziness. Why are people being so lazy? Laziness is such a bad thing. If you're being lazy every day, it's not good. Okay. And then shy, if somebody's shy. This time the Y doesn't change. It stays as a letter Y. Shyness. So if somebody's shy, they have a problem with shyness, or they may be trying to overcome their shyness. Okay, to be a little bit more comfortable with people and a bit more chatty. Shyness. Okay. And then finally, happy. Again, the Y changes to I. Happiness. So in life, we are all looking for happiness. That sort of thing. Okay. So, okay. I hope that's been a useful lesson, and do give it a try with some other adjectives and see what more new words you can add to your vocabulary to give yourself more scope and more flexibility with your use of English. And if you'd like to do a quiz on this topic, go to the website engVid.com, and there's a quiz there. Test your knowledge. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you again soon. Bye for now. Bye.